Clean lines and a lot of glass make for a very good looking case, and this is one of very few with the internal components visible from the right side of the case rather than the left. Howdy guys, Ponchato here, and today we're taking a look at the LD01 from SilverStone. For $115 does this case make the cut? Let's find out. The LD01 is defined by tempered glass, a lot of tempered glass. The front, left, and right side panels are all dark tinted tempered glass, each bordered with a frame made of stainless steel. The only case I'm aware of that uses stainless at all. The tempered glass side panels are also mounted like typical side panels with two thumb screws at the back, owing to that stainless steel frame. The top of the case is dominated by a vent with a removable magnetic filter, while the bottom of the case has rubber feet and a removable filter for the power supply intake. It does only fit micro ATX motherboards, but dimension-wise I'd call it a mid-tower case, about 17 inches long, 8.5 wide, and 15.5 tall. The frame of the case is standard steel, and the front panel uses a plastic frame, but the build quality of the case does feel very nice. The plastic on the front panel is also mostly covered by the tempered glass, save for a vent forward of the front I/O panel. The LD01 does have a unique feature on the front panel as well, a USB 3.1 Type-C port, in addition to two standard USB 3 and microphone and headphone jacks. It lacks a reset switch and hard drive activity LED for simplified front cable headers, and the front USB cables are flat, which gives it a more polished look inside. With the side panel off, you can see how the main compartment opens to the right rather than the left, as it does on most cases. The motherboard actually gets mounted upside down, leaving the GPU toward the top of the case with the CPU cooler underneath. With the large vent on top, this provides much better airflow for the GPU to pull air from outside. Under the shroud, you have soft mounts for decoupling the power supply and a 3-bay hard drive cage, which can be moved to 3 different positions depending on how much space you need for your power supply or a front radiator. The 3 drive bays support 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drives, and with 2 more 2.5-inch mounts at the top of the motherboard tray, the LD01 can hold up to 5 SSDs. In terms of maximum sizes, CPU coolers up to 168mm will fit, graphics cards up to 370, and power supplies up to 160, or 220 if you have the hard drive cage all the way forward. With that in mind, if you'll be using a radiator on the front, I'd go with a 140 or 150mm power supply to make things easy. Another unique feature on the LD01 is that it has 5 expansion slots rather than the micro ATX standard of 4. This allows for taller graphics card coolers or 25mm fans at the top for better cooling. And the expansion slots are replaceable with screws rather than the bend and snap kind, which I absolutely do not want to see ever in my life ever again. There's also a GPU support bracket toward the front of the case, but it won't do any good unless your graphics card actually extends past the front of the motherboard. It will be useful to support long and heavy cards though. One downside of the LD01 is the lack of stock fans. My guess here is that SilverStone assumed anyone who buys this case would be replacing the stock fans with their own anyway, or using radiators. It can fit 2 120 or 140 fans in front and on top, and 1 120 fan in the rear. Up to 280mm radiators can also fit in the front and top, though accessing the front panel headers on the motherboard will be a bit cramped because they're right there at the top of the case. SilverStone does get bonus points for the front filter though. Not only is it a very fine mesh that should capture the vast majority of dust, the filter is also positioned directly in front of the fans to filter all incoming air. What I mean is, on most cases, there are filters on the sides or the top of the front panel, but just an opening at the bottom so you can grab it and pull it off, meaning the fans will pull unfiltered air through that opening. On the LD01, the filter is directly in front of the fans, so they won't be pulling in any unfiltered air. Very nice. More bonus points for using that same ultra-fine mesh on the power supply intake, since those always suck up a lot of dust since they're pulling from underneath the case. Cable management in the LD01 follows the thoughtfulness of the rest of the case. 3 large grommeted holes on top of the power supply shroud and forward of the motherboard offer plenty of space for getting cables to the motherboard. There's also a small hole in the top right which should allow you to reach the front panel audio header if it's close enough to the edge of your motherboard. Space behind the motherboard tray is ample, especially toward the front of the case, and there are plenty of cable tie-down points to keep things organized. The build process was pretty easy in this case, and the cable management was simple with the fairly huge space available. Besides that, the left side panel is tinted dark enough that the cables behind it are almost impossible to see, and with the smartly placed openings around the motherboard, the interior looks very clean and organized. Now let's look at the benchmarks. Because the LD01 doesn't come with fans, I tested it with 3 Corsair ML120 fans set to a max of 1200 RPM to stay in line with most other case fans. First, we'll look at noise from the case fans alone. With the ML120s running at 1200 RPM, the LD01 is actually pretty quiet at only 35.7 decibels. Noise at the minimum RPM, about 400 for these fans, is also essentially silent at under 30 dB. Now here's the overall noise chart at idle and load. The LD01 falls right in line with most other cases I've tested at a little under 43 decibels, while overall idle noise is very manageable at 31.6. What I found with most cases is that load noise is dominated by the CPU and GPU coolers, so the case itself doesn't have a huge effect on noise unless it's equipped with extremely high RPM fans. Here we have the CPU temperatures. The LD01 fits right in the middle at 42.2 degrees above ambient. Idle temperature is also about as low as it can go at only 5.5 degrees. Nothing too crazy here, and to be honest, cases will only stand out if they have exceptionally poor airflow. It only takes a little to allow a CPU cooler to do its job well. And finally, we have the GPU temperatures. I was actually expecting a bit better performance here given the GPU's proximity to the top vent. The performance here could be improved probably quite a bit if you were to install 2 intake fans on top to blow air directly toward the GPU's intake. As it is now, there's a pretty sizable gap between the GPU and the top of the case, so that does limit how much outside air the graphics card can actually pull in. Overall, the LD01 is a really good looking case with pretty good performance. With its high build quality, however, comes a pretty high cost. $120 on a case, frankly speaking, isn't cheap. And you'll need to factor in the cost of case fans, which will add another $15 to $20 on the low end, depending on how many you use. Then again, SilverStone isn't really known as a budget brand, so this isn't all too surprising or necessarily a problem with the case, just something to be aware of. Also keep in mind that with this much tempered glass, you're gonna have to be careful not to touch it to keep it clean. That can make moving it a bit of a pain unless you just capitulate and accept that you're gonna have to wipe it down every time. It's definitely one of the sleekest cases I've reviewed and would fit well in almost any decor. It is, after all, mostly just a dark glass box with no obnoxious logos or lighting. Cable management is a breeze, the final look inside is extremely clean, and with up to 5 drives you have quite a bit of capacity for storage despite the LD01 being a very reasonably sized case. Another thing to consider is that because of the inverted motherboard design, this is one of very few cases that shows the components toward the right rather than the left. If your setup demands that your PC be to your left, or if you just want to switch sides from a regular case, the LD01 can do that for you. Click the link in the description to pick one up for yourself. Hit subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of new videos as soon as they're up. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I want to hear from you. Do you like sleek designs like this or brighter, more colorful PCs? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm really curious what the next big thing after tempered glass is gonna be. How about wood? We should make computers out of wood. How tight would that be? Extremely tight is the answer. I mean, I think bamboo is pretty trendy. Bamboo PC, coming to a store near you.